I never thought it would end like this. I thought I had everything: love, success, the perfect future. I could see it all in front of me, a happy home, my business thriving, and Sarah by my side. But I was wrong. I had come home early that day, eager to surprise her, thinking we could spend some time together. The house was quiet, too quiet. It felt off. I stepped inside, the air thick with a kind of stillness I'd never felt before. The smell of her perfume lingered in the air, but something else was there: tension. I walked through the living room, my footsteps muffled by the soft carpet. I called out, expecting to hear her voice, but there was no response. My heart started to race as I walked toward our bedroom, the door slightly ajar. And then I saw it. The letter. It was lying on the bed, as if waiting for me. I picked it up with trembling hands, my breath catching in my throat. I knew, in that instant, what it was. I felt the weight of the world in those few seconds before I opened it. I'm leaving. I've taken everything I need. The words burned into my mind. I could barely get through the rest of the letter. My stomach twisted as I read how she'd taken not just the money, not just the trust one had in her, but everything. Every hope, every dream I'd built for us, now shattered in one moment. I stood there in silence, holding the letter in my hand. It was as if the world had stopped moving around me. My heart felt like it was being torn out of my chest, and I couldn't breathe. How could you do this to me? I whispered to myself, though I knew she couldn't hear me. I felt my fists clench, my knuckles white from the pressure. I should have known. I should have seen the signs. But I had been blind, caught up in the life we were building together, thinking that nothing could break us. I threw the letter down, watching it land on the floor, my hands shaking. Everything in me screamed for answers. I needed to know why. Why had she done this? What had I done wrong? My mind raced. The disbelief mixed with a rising tide of anger. I couldn't stay in that room, not now. I stormed out, my feet moving faster than my thoughts. I wasn't thinking straight, but I needed to go somewhere, anywhere, to get out of the house, out of the place that once felt like home. I grabbed my coat and slammed the front door behind me. The cold air hit me, but I didn't care. I walked down the street, barely noticing where I was going. My mind was consumed with one thought: betrayal. The betrayal that had just been handed to me like a gift I never asked for. I could hear the sound of my phone vibrating in my pocket, but I didn't care. I didn't want to hear from anyone, not yet. Not when everything I had worked for was crumbling around me. My best friend, Mike, called. I glanced at the screen, but I didn't pick up. I didn't want his pity right now. I didn't want to hear him tell me it would all be okay. Because I knew, deep down, it wouldn't be. My life had been turned upside down, and no one could fix that. I continued walking, lost in my thoughts. How could she? How could Sarah, someone I had trusted more than anyone in the world, do this to me? My hands were shaking, my chest tight, and my mind swirling with a mix of confusion and rage. It wasn't until I reached the small park near the end of the block that I finally stopped. I stood there, breathing heavily, staring at the empty bench in front of me. The wind blew through the trees, but I didn't feel it. Everything felt numb. I sank down onto the bench, the cool metal pressing into my legs. The anger was still there, deep in my gut, but now it mixed with something else. Something darker. Something I didn't want to acknowledge. I had to do something. I couldn't just let her get away with this. She thinks she's won, I muttered to myself, clenching my fists again. She thinks she can just take everything from me and walk away without consequences. The thought of Sarah flaunting her newfound life made my blood boil. She'd taken everything I'd worked for. My money. My business. My trust. My heart. She hadn't even cared enough to leave me with an explanation. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Mike. "Call me when you get this. We need to talk." I ran my hand through my hair, staring at the screen. I didn't want to talk to him. Not now. Not when the only thing that mattered to me was getting back what was mine. I looked up at the sky, my thoughts clouded with anger. There was no going back now. I wasn't going to sit here and let her win. She'd taken everything from me, but I wasn't going to let her take my dignity. I'd rebuild. I'd come back stronger. But this time, I wasn't going to make the same mistakes. "I'll make her regret this," I whispered to myself, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. The truth hit me then. It wasn't just about the money or the business. It was about what she had taken from me emotionally. The trust. The love. All of it had been ripped away, and now, it was up to me to get it back, on my terms. But first, I had to figure out how. I stood up, wiping the cold sweat from my brow. The darkness around me seemed to reflect my mood. I wasn't going to let her walk away without facing the consequences. And I wasn't going to sit idly by, pretending like I was okay with what she had done. As I walked back home, I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't just going to rebuild. I was going to take everything from her, just like she had taken everything from me. But this time, I wasn't going to lose. I couldn't. I didn't know where to start. It felt like everything I touched was falling apart. Sarah's betrayal was still raw, fresh, like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. The business, the one thing I'd spent years building, was slipping through my fingers. Each day felt like a struggle, every decision I made felt wrong. The more I tried to fix things, the more everything crumbled. I stared at my computer screen, frustration building in my chest. How was I supposed to rebuild when the foundation had been ripped out from under me? I looked at the numbers: failing contracts, upset clients, missed opportunities. My empire was collapsing, and I felt powerless to stop it. The anger inside me grew stronger with every missed call, every bad deal, every time I saw Sarah's face on social media, flaunting the life I had worked so hard to give her. She looked so happy. So confident. It made me sick. "She thinks she's won," I muttered, clenching my fist, staring at her smiling face in the photo. Her arm draped over her new partner, a smug grin on her lips. She had everything now: the business, the wealth, the success. All the things I had built for us. The rage bubbled up inside me, threatening to spill over. I couldn't stand it anymore. I had to do something. I needed to make her regret what she had done. I couldn't stay like this. Broken. Watching her move on as if nothing had happened. But where do I even begin? That's when I thought of Liam. Liam and I had worked together years ago, before Sarah and I got serious. He was sharp, driven, and ambitious, everything I needed right now. He'd been involved in some of the biggest deals in the industry, and his connections were exactly what I needed to get my foot back in the door. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through my contacts until I found his name. My thumb hovered over the screen, hesitating. I hadn't talked to Liam in years. After I got serious with Sarah, I pulled away from a lot of people, but now I needed him. I took a deep breath and pressed the call button. The phone rang a few times before he picked up. "Hey, long time, no talk," Liam said, his voice casual but with a hint of curiosity. "What's up?" "Hey, Liam. I need your help. There was a brief pause on the other end. What happened? You sound off. I lost everything, Liam. Sarah took everything. My business, my money, my trust. My voice cracked as I said it. I had told myself I wouldn't break down, but I couldn't hold it in. The anger, the betrayal, all of it swelled up inside me. I gritted my teeth, trying to keep it together. I'm trying to rebuild, but I need your help to get back in the game. Liam didn't hesitate. I'm in. We can figure something out. His words hit me like a wave. I wasn't alone in this. I had someone in my corner again, someone who could help me fight back. Thanks, Liam. You don't know how much this means to me, I said, the relief almost overwhelming. I'll get the ball rolling on my end. We'll talk soon. Just, let me know exactly what you need, he said, his voice calm but resolute. And don't worry, we'll make her regret what she did. You'll get everything back. The conversation ended, but I sat there for a moment, staring at my phone. The weight of it all didn't seem as heavy now. I had a plan, and with Liam's help, I could start to climb out of the hole Sarah had left me in. But as the anger slowly turned into determination, I realized one thing: I wasn't just rebuilding. I wasn't just going to get back what I'd lost. No, this was personal. I was going to make her regret everything she had done to me. And if she thought she was the one who won, she was about to find out how wrong she was. The next few days were a blur of meetings, phone calls, and strategizing. Liam introduced me to a few key people in the industry, people who could help me restore my business. Slowly but surely, I started to see the pieces come together. I was getting my foot back in the door, and the business was starting to pick up again. But I wasn't just working to rebuild. Every move I made, every contract I signed, I kept thinking of Sarah. Her smug face, her new life, the wealth she flaunted, it pushed me further. It fueled my every decision. It made me want to do more. I started making calls to people I hadn't spoken to in years, reconnecting with old clients and partners. I was getting back what I'd lost, piece by piece. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Every time I saw Sarah's face on social media, every time I heard about her new projects, I felt the rage stirring inside me again. She didn't deserve any of it. She didn't deserve to enjoy the fruits of my labor. It was all a lie. She had betrayed me, and now she was playing the role of the victorious one. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was determined to take everything back. And once I had everything back, I'd make sure she paid for what she'd done. One night, after another long day of work, I sat in my office, staring at the numbers. It was a quiet moment, the only sound the ticking of the clock. I could feel the weight of my decisions. I had started to climb back, but it didn't feel like enough. I needed to do more. I looked down at the contract I had just signed. This was it. This was the first major step in my plan to take her down. I wasn't going to just rebuild, I was going to take back everything I had lost and then some. And when I did, I would make sure Sarah knew exactly what it felt like to lose everything. I was no longer the man I was before Sarah's betrayal. I wasn't the person who believed in love, who trusted easily, and who was willing to forgive. No, now I was someone else, someone colder, someone focused. I wasn't going to let her win. Not again. And as I sat there in my office, looking over the deal I had just secured, I realized that the next phase of my plan had begun. The empire she had taken from me was coming back, one step at a time. But this time, I wouldn't stop until I had taken everything from her. The nights stretched on, each one longer than the last. I couldn't sleep, not with everything I'd lost, and everything I was planning to take back. Sarah thought she'd won. She thought I was finished. But I wasn't. I was just getting started. I spent every moment scouring the details of her business, looking for any weakness, any crack in the facade she'd built around herself. It wasn't hard to find. Sarah was arrogant, and arrogance always left a trail. I knew her well enough to understand that. I'd always been the one to carry the load, to make the decisions that kept our lives running smoothly. And now, she was taking the credit for everything I'd worked for. I couldn't let that stand. Each night, I sat in my dimly lit office, my laptop glowing in front of me, papers scattered across the desk. The quiet hum of the city outside the window was the only sound that kept me company as I plotted my revenge. I started small, at first. Small leaks, small rumors, things that would get her investors talking. Her business was built on trust, and I was going to tear that trust apart. I wasn't going to confront her directly, not yet. That would come later. For now, I needed to watch, to study, to understand every move she made. I could feel the anger simmering inside me as I watched her flaunt her success. She posted about her new partnership, her new business ventures, her travels, all of it taunting me. I knew it was meant to hurt, but I didn't let it. Instead, I took the anger, the pain, and turned it into fuel. Every decision, every action I took was deliberate. Calculated. I had a plan, and it was going to work. But as the days passed, I felt something else growing inside me. Something darker. It wasn't just about the business anymore. It wasn't just about reclaiming what was mine. No, it was more than that. This wasn't just about getting back what Sarah had stolen, it was about making her pay. Each victory I achieved brought me closer to the goal, but it also pulled me further away from the man I used to be. The one who believed in second chances, who believed in forgiveness. That man was gone, lost somewhere in the rubble of what she'd done to me. Now, I was focused on one thing, destroying everything she held dear, just like she had destroyed me. I knew it was coming. I knew that I would have to face her eventually. But for now, I kept to the shadows, watching her every move, listening for every misstep. And as I watched, I began to understand her better. Her pride was her weakness. Her belief that she had everything under control. The more I studied her, the more I realized I didn't need to confront her directly. I didn't need to raise my voice or make a scene. No, I would destroy her quietly, methodically, piece by piece. I would take everything she had worked for, everything she thought was hers, and watch her lose it all, just like I had. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen in front of me. The plan was falling into place. But as I reviewed the moves I had made, I couldn't help but feel a gnawing sensation at the back of my mind. Was this really what I wanted? Was this who I had become? I shook my head, trying to clear the thoughts from my mind. I couldn't afford to doubt myself. I had to see this through. There was no turning back now. Liam's voice broke through my thoughts. "You're making progress," he said, his tone sharp and confident. He had been instrumental in helping me navigate the business world again, but I had to admit that I wasn't always comfortable with how he went about it. He was ruthless, driven by ambition, and I could see how easily he could slip into the same darkness I was finding myself in. "I'm not done yet," I replied, my voice cold. "But I'm getting there." "You've got her on the ropes. Keep pushing, and she'll fold." Liam was right. The cracks were starting to show. I had managed to secure a few key business partners, ones that had previously worked with Sarah but now questioned her decisions. I'd planted the seeds of doubt, and now they were starting to grow. But I couldn't stop now. Not until I had everything back, until she had nothing. You know, Liam continued, his voice softer this time, you've come a long way since I last saw you. I've got to admit, I didn't think you had it in you. I'm not the same person anymore, I said, my eyes narrowing. You don't get to stay the person you were after something like this. Sarah took everything from me. I'm just taking it back. Liam didn't say anything for a moment, but I could hear the smile in his voice when he spoke again. I like the new you. I frowned at his words, but before I could respond, the phone rang. I picked it up without checking the caller ID, my hand shaking slightly as I answered. Yeah? It's done, came the voice on the other end, one of my contacts in Sarah's company. I closed my eyes, the weight of the news settling on me. Good, I said, my voice low. Keep me updated. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was changing inside me. My focus was sharper than ever, but there was a coldness to it. A darkness I hadn't felt before. I wasn't just building an empire again. I was creating something else, something that would make Sarah wish she'd never crossed me. Liam looked at me, sensing the shift. Don't lose yourself in this, he said, his tone serious. I gave him a sharp look. I'm not losing myself. I'm becoming who I need to be. Liam didn't argue, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He might have been helping me rebuild, but he didn't know the depth of the storm inside me. No one did. Not even Mike, my old friend. He had no idea what I was really after. But I didn't care. I had a plan. And I was going to see it through, no matter what it cost me. The next few days were a blur of meetings, calls, and decisions. Each move brought me closer to my goal. Sarah's world was beginning to crumble, and the more I made her life miserable, the more I felt alive. I hadn't felt this powerful in years. This was who I was now, the man who would stop at nothing to get back what he'd lost. But as I watched everything fall into place, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Someone who was willing to destroy everything in his path to get what he wanted. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't sure if that person was someone I could live with. The first domino fell. I had waited for this moment. Months of careful planning, hours of research, countless phone calls, all of it coming to fruition. The first blow against Sarah's empire was small, almost imperceptible, but I knew it would start a chain reaction. It was a minor flaw in one of her key projects, a missed deadline, a poorly executed deal that I had quietly leaked to the right people. It was nothing too drastic, but enough to stir doubt. Enough to set the wheels in motion. I sat in my office, watching the news unfold. The phone rang, and when I answered, it was a familiar voice from one of my old business partners. You see it, the voice asked. Her company's shaking. Word is, the investors aren't happy. A small smile tugged at my lips. It was working. Slowly, but it was working. I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes for a moment. The satisfaction was overwhelming. Seeing Sarah's empire, the one she had taken from me, starting to crack under the pressure felt like the sweetest victory. The doubts, the frustrations she was no doubt feeling, they all gave me a sense of power I hadn't felt in months. I had every right to feel this way, didn't I? She had destroyed me, taken everything I loved, and now it was my turn. The truth was, I wasn't just rebuilding, I was dismantling her life, piece by piece, just as she had done to me. But with every small victory, the question kept echoing in my mind. Was this really what I wanted? Was this who I wanted to become? I told myself it was about justice. That was how I justified everything I was doing. I had every right to go after her. I had to make her understand the cost of betrayal. But deep down, the satisfaction I felt as her world began to crumble made me wonder if this was truly about justice anymore. It was starting to feel more like something else, something darker. I looked at the phone in my hand, the weight of my decisions hanging over me. What was I becoming? The line between what was right and what felt good was beginning to blur, and I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. The next few weeks were a blur of sabotage. I became more and more consumed by the idea of watching her fall. Every little thing I could find, every weakness in her business, I exploited. It wasn't just the deals that were falling apart, the cracks in her reputation were starting to show. The investors were talking. The media was starting to pick up on the problems she was facing. And every time I saw her face on the news, her smile now tinged with concern, I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction. She didn't know it was me. She had no idea who was behind it. That was the beauty of it. The slow burn, the pressure building until she couldn't handle it anymore. I wanted her to feel the same helplessness I had felt when she took everything from me. But with each victory, something inside me shifted. I started to enjoy this too much. It wasn't just about making her pay. I realized that it had become personal, far more personal than I'd intended. My phone buzzed, and I picked it up, noticing Liam's name on the screen. I hesitated before answering, the voice in my head telling me I didn't need anyone's concern right now. But I answered anyway. Yeah? You're playing a dangerous game, Liam said, his voice steady but with an underlying tension I could hear. I get what you're doing, but don't lose sight of why you started this. Don't let the revenge consume you. I leaned back in my chair, looking out the window at the city skyline. I'm not losing sight of anything. I'm doing what needs to be done. She took everything from me. Now it's my turn to take everything from her. There was a long pause before Liam spoke again. Just don't forget what you wanted in the beginning. Don't become the thing you're trying to destroy. His words hit me harder than I cared to admit. He was right. Somewhere along the way, I had started enjoying this. I wasn't just taking back what I lost, I was savoring her pain. And that wasn't who I was. That wasn't who I used to be. But that part of me, the part that was angry, the part that felt betrayed, was taking over. I didn't want to admit it, but I knew deep down that I was starting to lose myself. Was it really worth it? Was the revenge worth becoming someone I didn't recognize? I pushed the thought aside and focused on the next step. I had a plan, and I wasn't about to let doubts get in the way. Not now. I won't forget, I said, my voice cold and steady. This is just the beginning. As the weeks went on, Sarah's world continued to crumble. It started small, whispers in the boardrooms, concerns about the stability of her company. But it grew. And I saw it. I could feel the panic building inside her, the cracks in her carefully curated image spreading. She was still pretending everything was fine, but I knew better. I could see the frustration in her eyes every time she was caught off guard by a new problem. She called me once, a few days after things started to really fall apart for her. It was the first time I'd heard from her since the betrayal. I didn't answer at first. But as the phone rang on, I couldn't help myself. I picked it up. Hello? I said, my voice flat. Why are you doing this? Her voice cracked, full of anger and desperation. What do you want from me? Haven't you done enough? I could feel the old familiar pull in my chest, the part of me that still cared for her, that still wanted answers. But I quickly shut that down. This wasn't about that anymore. I want you to understand the consequences of what you did, I replied, my words cold. You thought you could take everything from me and walk away unscathed. Well, now you know that's not how it works. This is just the beginning. There was silence on the other end, and I could almost hear the realization hitting her. I heard her take a shaky breath before she spoke again. You've changed, she whispered. I don't even know you anymore. And in that moment, I realized something. She was right. I had changed. But it was too late for me to go back now. Revenge had taken hold of me, and there was no escaping it. I could feel it all coming to a head. This was the moment I'd been working toward, the moment where everything Sarah had built, everything she had stolen from me, would come crashing down. The plan had been unfolding perfectly, and now, it was time to make my final move. I started small, as I had before, little whispers in the right ears, carefully placed rumors, and a well-timed leak to the press about some questionable financial dealings. But this time, there was no subtlety. I went straight for the jugular. I exposed the cracks in Sarah's business, manipulated her investors, and let the truth of her lies sink in. Slowly, I watched as her empire began to unravel. Every deal she had worked so hard to secure was slipping through her fingers, and I could feel a sick satisfaction in every move I made. I thought it would feel good, watching her squirm, watching her world crumble. I thought it would give me the closure I needed. But as I watched her panic, her carefully constructed mask of confidence slipping away, I started to realize something. I didn't care about the money anymore. It wasn't about the business. It wasn't even about getting back what she'd stolen from me. No, this was about revenge. Pure, simple revenge. I wanted her to feel the way I felt when I came home that night and saw the betrayal in her eyes. I wanted her to feel alone, broken, abandoned. I wanted her to know the depth of the pain she had caused me. But as I dug deeper, the satisfaction I thought I would feel started to fade. Each success, each victory in my plot, left me emptier. It was like I was losing something along the way, something inside me that I couldn't get back. The anger was still there, clouding my thoughts, but it was starting to feel like something else. Something darker. I knew it had to end soon, but I didn't want it to end with her winning. I couldn't let her walk away. I had to see it through. The day I decided to confront her, I was no longer the man I used to be. I was a stranger to myself. I had become consumed by this need for vengeance, and no amount of success in taking down her business could change that. I called her that morning. It was time. The phone rang, and I could feel my heartbeat in my chest. I wasn't nervous, though. I was beyond that. I was done with all the games, the waiting. Hello? Her voice was calm, too calm, like she was pretending everything was fine. It's done, I said. I've made sure it's all gone, your business, your reputation, everything you thought you had. You have nothing left. There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. Then, the words came, quiet but desperate. What do you want from me? Why are you doing this? I couldn't answer her. I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I wasn't sure if I ever had a clear answer to that question. You took everything from me, I said, my voice raw. And now, I'm taking everything from you. The words felt empty as I said them. I could hear the tremor in her voice when she spoke again. Please, don't do this. I'm sorry. I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. Please, we can fix this. That's when it hit me. Her words, her apology, felt like a slap in the face. She was sorry now. But it was too late. You think you can fix this? I asked, my voice sharp. You think you can just apologize and make everything right? After everything you've done, you think sorry means anything? There was a pause, and I could hear her breathing, shallow and frantic. I never wanted this, she said. I never wanted to hurt you. But I've lost everything too. Don't you see? We're both broken. I stayed silent, letting her words hang in the air. She was trying to regain control, trying to manipulate the situation, just like she had before. But this time, I saw through it. This time, I wasn't going to fall for her games. No, Sarah, I said coldly. You lost everything because you chose to take everything from me first. You don't get to turn this around now. The line went silent again, and I could almost hear her sobbing quietly, the realization hitting her like a ton of bricks. She knew it was over. She knew the damage was done. She knew she had lost. And as I stood there, hearing her helpless, desperate pleas, something inside me twisted. I wanted to feel satisfaction. I wanted to feel vindicated. But all I felt was empty. The truth was, I had gotten everything I wanted. I had destroyed her business, her life, and her reputation. But I hadn't gotten the peace I thought I would. I hadn't gotten the closure. I hadn't gotten anything that made me feel better. I had one, but I had lost a part of myself in the process. I'm done, I said, ending the call before she could respond. I didn't need to hear her anymore. I didn't need to hear her excuses. I looked at the phone in my hand, a part of me wanting to throw it against the wall. But I didn't. Instead, I put it down gently, my hands shaking. Everything I had done, everything I had worked for, had led to this moment. I had broken Sarah. I had broken her completely. But I had broken myself too. And as I stared at the city skyline from my office, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was no victory here. I had won, but at what cost? Liam called me later that day, his voice low and cautious. You okay? Yeah, I said, though the word felt hollow. I did it. It's done. Are you sure this is what you wanted? Liam asked, the concern in his voice unmistakable. I didn't answer him right away. Part of me wanted to say yes. Part of me wanted to believe that everything I had done had been worth it. But deep down, I knew it hadn't. I'm fine, I lied, hanging up the phone before he could say more. I wasn't fine. But I had no idea how to fix it. I stood there in the middle of my office, the city lights flickering outside the window. Everything I had worked for, every move, every calculation, every step I took to destroy Sarah, had led me to this moment. The business was mine again. The money, the power, the reputation, I had reclaimed it all. I had taken everything from her. But now, as I looked at the wreckage I had caused, something inside me twisted. I won. But I didn't feel like a winner. The victory was hollow, a fleeting thing. The satisfaction of revenge lasted only a moment. It was like a drug that wore off too quickly, leaving nothing behind but emptiness. I had expected to feel something fulfilling, something like justice, but all I felt was exhaustion. I walked across the room, my footsteps echoing in the quiet. The anger that once fueled me had left me drained. Every part of me that had once been sharp, focused, had become dull. I thought taking everything from Sarah would give me closure. I thought destroying her would somehow fill the void she had left in me. But it didn't. Instead, the emptiness inside me only grew. It wasn't the loss of wealth or status that gnawed at me. No, it was the toll this had all taken on me. I had lost something far more valuable in my quest for revenge. I had lost myself. I stopped in front of the window, staring out at the city below. The lights blurred in front of my eyes, and I felt a weight settle in my chest. What had I become? The man who once believed in second chances, in redemption, was gone. All that was left was this shell of a person, driven only by the desire to see others fall. I thought I'd be satisfied once Sarah was broken. I thought I'd feel a sense of victory. But all I felt was emptiness. I had done it. I had taken everything from her, her empire, her pride, her wealth. She was broken. She had lost everything she had stolen from me. But what did I have to show for it? Was it worth it? Was it worth losing my soul to make her pay? The phone buzzed on the desk, interrupting my thoughts. It was Liam. I knew I should answer, but part of me wanted to ignore it. I wasn't ready to hear what he had to say. But I knew I couldn't avoid him forever. I picked it up. Yeah? My voice sounded distant, even to me. You're still awake, Liam said, his tone cautious. How's it going? I let out a breath, trying to steady myself. It's done, I said. Everything's in ruins. I've got everything back. Good, Liam replied. But I don't feel good, I interrupted. I thought I would, but I don't. I thought destroying her would make everything right, but it hasn't. I thought taking everything back would make me feel whole, but it hasn't. All I feel is empty. There was a long pause on the other end. I could hear the sound of Liam's breathing. He knew me better than anyone else. He knew what I had been through, and I think he knew how much this was affecting me. You've been through hell, man, Liam said slowly. You've been burned. And you've done what you thought was right. But now you've got to ask yourself, was it worth it? Was it worth becoming someone you didn't recognize to get revenge? His words hit me harder than I expected. I had become someone else in this process, someone driven by rage, someone willing to sacrifice everything to see Sarah lose. I had thought it would give me closure, but all it had done was strip away the parts of me that had once cared. It's not just about Sarah anymore, I said quietly. I've changed, and I don't know if I can fix it. Maybe you can't, Liam said. But that doesn't mean you can't find peace. You've got to let go of this anger. Holding on to it is only going to keep you chained to something you don't need anymore. I closed my eyes, the weight of his words sinking in. The anger that had once burned so brightly inside me now felt like an anchor, pulling me down. I had let it consume me. And now, all I wanted was to escape it. But could I? Could I really let go of the past, of everything Sarah had taken from me? I didn't know the answer. But I knew one thing for sure, I couldn't keep living like this. The revenge, the pain, the anger, it was tearing me apart. It had given me everything I thought I wanted, but it had also taken something I could never get back. I'm tired, Liam, I whispered. I'm so damn tired. Liam didn't respond right away. He just let the silence stretch, as if he was giving me space to breathe. You've been through a lot, he finally said. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to think about what's next. Revenge doesn't give you peace, man. It just keeps you locked in the past. You need to figure out what your future looks like, not just keep living in the shadow of your past. I leaned back in my chair, letting his words sink in. He was right. I had been living in the past, letting the hurt and anger from what Sarah had done to me dictate every decision I made. But that couldn't be all there was. I'm not sure I can just move on, I said, the words barely audible. You don't have to forget, Liam said gently. But you can let go. It's the only way you'll find peace. I nodded slowly, though I wasn't sure if I believed him. How do you let go of something that's been so ingrained in you? How do you walk away from the pain that's been driving you for so long? But deep down, I knew he was right. I had to let go. I couldn't keep carrying the weight of my past with me. If I wanted to move forward, I had to make peace with what had happened. I had to stop letting revenge control me. I spent the next few days thinking about everything I had done, everything I had lost. I couldn't take back the pain or the choices I had made, but I could start fresh. I could focus on rebuilding what had been shattered, not just my business, but myself. I didn't know where to start, but I knew that holding on to the anger was no longer an option. And as the city buzzed outside my office window, I realized something. I had won. But the price of that victory had been my soul. It was time to find peace. True peace. Not the kind that comes from revenge, but the kind that comes from letting go. And for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe that was something I could still find. I stood at the edge of my office building, the city sprawling out in front of me like an endless sea of lights. The world looked so different now. So much had changed in such a short time. My business was thriving again, my wealth restored, and my pride, once shattered, had been rebuilt from the ground up. But despite all of that, there was still an emptiness inside me that I couldn't shake. I thought that reclaiming what I'd lost would fill the void. I thought that revenge would bring me closure, that it would be the final piece of the puzzle that would make everything right again. But as I stood there, looking out over the city, I realized something important. I had won. I had taken back everything Sarah had stolen from me, but in the process, I had lost something that was much harder to regain. I had lost myself. The man I had become wasn't the same one who had entered this story. I had started out with a clear sense of who I was, someone driven by love, by ambition, by hope. But somewhere along the way, that man had been replaced by someone else. Someone cold, calculating, and driven by anger. Revenge had consumed me, twisted my thoughts, and warped my actions. And now that I had what I thought I wanted, I wasn't sure I recognized the person staring back at me in the mirror. I turned away from the window, my gaze lingering on the city below. The lights glittered like a million possibilities, but none of them seemed to matter. Not anymore. The emptiness was still there, lingering in my chest, gnawing at me. I have everything, I whispered to myself, more as a question than a statement. But why does it still feel like something's missing? I couldn't answer the question. I didn't know how. But I did know one thing for sure, revenge hadn't given me peace. It hadn't fixed me. It hadn't made me feel whole. It had made me feel worse. I had gone after Sarah with everything I had, but all it had left me with was this gnawing feeling of emptiness. I had thought destroying her life would fill the void inside me, but it only made it bigger. I had thought that when Sarah had lost everything, I would finally feel satisfied. But instead, I felt nothing. Nothing at all. I heard the door open behind me, and I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Liam had been by my side throughout this entire process, guiding me through the mess of business deals and legal battles. But more than that, he had been the voice of reason, the one person who hadn't let me completely lose myself in the darkness of my revenge. "You still thinking about it?" he asked, his voice steady, calm, like it always was. Liam had always been the grounded one between us, logical, measured, someone who could see the bigger picture when I was too consumed by the smaller details. "I'm not sure what to think anymore," I admitted, letting out a long breath. I thought that taking back everything would make it all better, but it hasn't. I feel empty, Liam. And I don't know why. Liam stepped closer, his presence a comforting weight behind me. Because, my friend, revenge doesn't heal wounds. It doesn't fix broken things. You've been trying to fill a hole with something that can never fill it. I turned to face him, meeting his gaze for the first time in days. There was a quiet understanding in his eyes, a wisdom that I had been too blinded by anger to see before. You're right, I said quietly. I've been so focused on making her pay that I didn't realize the cost of what I was doing to myself. I thought it was justice. But it's not. It never was. Liam nodded slowly, his expression softening. The truth is, revenge doesn't bring peace, not the kind you're looking for. You can take everything from her, but it won't fix what's broken inside you. The only thing that can fix it is forgiveness. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Forgiveness. I had been so focused on taking from Sarah, on seeing her suffer, that I hadn't once stopped to consider what forgiveness would mean for me. What it would mean for my own peace. I had been holding on to this anger, this resentment, like it was the only thing that could give me control. But all it had done was steal everything from me, my happiness, my peace, my soul. I don't know if I can forgive her, I said, the words feeling foreign on my tongue. I don't know if I can let go of what she did to me. What she took from me. Liam looked at me with that same quiet wisdom, his gaze unwavering. Forgiveness isn't about her, man. It's about you. It's about letting go of the pain, of the anger, so that you can move on. You've got to forgive for your own sake, not hers. I looked down at the floor, letting his words sink in. Forgiveness. It sounded impossible, like the last thing I would ever be able to do. But deep down, I knew he was right. Holding on to this anger was only hurting me. It was keeping me stuck in the past, trapped in a cycle of pain and vengeance that I didn't know how to break. I turned back to the window, staring out at the city again. The lights seemed brighter now, more hopeful. Maybe it was the beginning of a new chapter. Maybe it was time to stop living in the shadow of my past mistakes and start focusing on the future. But first, I had to let go of what had been. I had to forgive, not for her, but for myself. The realization hit me like a wave, and for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight inside me start to lift. The emptiness didn't disappear, but it didn't feel as suffocating. Maybe it was the first step toward something else. Maybe it was the beginning of healing. You're right, I said, my voice steadier now. I don't need her to apologize. I need to forgive her, and myself. Liam smiled, a rare warmth in his expression. That's the first step. You can't change the past, but you can change what happens next. Don't let it control you anymore. For the first time, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe I could move on. Maybe I could let go of the past and stop carrying it with me. The road to healing wouldn't be easy, but I didn't have to do it alone. I'll try, I said quietly. I'll try to forgive. Liam clapped me on the back, his support unwavering. That's all anyone can ask. And I've got your back, no matter what. As I stood there, looking out at the city below, I realized something. I had reclaimed my life, my wealth, my business, my pride. But now it was time to reclaim my peace. And maybe, just maybe, I could find it in forgiveness.